All right, welcome to part 2 of simplifying variable expressions. So another common way that we would simplify a basic math phrase is using the distributive property. And hopefully the distributive property is something that you've been exposed to over the last couple years in diving into algebra. So today we're just going to basically review and also talk about common tricks and errors, misconceptions that students have that lead to wrong answers. So we're going to kind of clarify hopefully some of those areas and get you more confident, get you back into the math brain of simplifying variable expressions. All right, so remember, simplifying is basically just the act of shortening a math phrase, putting things down to simplest terms. Distributive property is a property which has one term outside of a parenthesis grouping. So to simplify, we multiply, we use the operation of multiply, and we multiply with all the terms inside of that grouping parenthesis. Now, one thing is to remember that each term includes the sign in front of it. And hopefully you'll see a little bit more what I mean by that if that sounds foreign to you, or if you can't remember what we talked about last week with the idea of terms. So let's dive in. Start with level 1, and this would be distributing positive terms. So this would be the most basic type of distributing. When we've got a positive term or number out front of our grouping symbol. So if we say, quick look, 4, 7, 2, 4, all the numbers outside are positive. And just to kind of explain my setup here is I've got a blank, a circle, and then a blank. So if you take a look, we've got two terms inside of this parenthesis. We're essentially going to be doing two types of two little mini multiplication computations. So first, I'm going to take 4 and we're going to multiply it by 3x. So 4 times 3 is 12, and that x, that variable, just comes along with it. Now, when we talked about terms, you look out to the left or the front of that term to determine the sign. So I'm just going to do this. You guys kind of see how I'm going to take that 4 and I went ahead and I multiplied it by the 3x and I got 12x, right? But that 4 also has to be multiplied by the second term. And I kind of moved it out there to the right so that you can see in your calculator, you would be multiplying 4 times a positive 1. Now your answer is kind of what determines the side or the sign in here. This little circle here, I'm meaning for your sign. Is it addition? Is it subtraction? So 4 times 1 is a positive 4. So if you had your calculator, now I would hope that you wouldn't do the 4 times 1 in there, and you might just hopefully know that. We have 4 times 1, and I get an answer of positive 4. So that second space there is purely for the second answer. Now, because you are joining these expressions, it's a positive 4, right? I'm joining my terms. Plus, remember we talked about it, and in terms in general, right? You know, if I kind of go back here and I unscribble this part, it's a positive sign. Sorry about that. It's a plus sign. It's a positive sign. It's a plus sign. It's a positive sign. So again, however you kind of look at it is fine. But in here again, you could kind of look at it. This is a positive 4, but when I'm combined or right behind the 12x, it is like a plus 4. So just make sure when you are computing, and we're going to go through this, go through some examples, and hopefully this becomes clearer. All right, so taking a look at the second one, I've got two mini multiplication problems here. So my first one, we're going to multiply this positive 7 by 2x. So 7 times 2 gives me 14. And I'm going to put my x with it. Now, again, it's positive. I don't really need my positive sign up front, right? Because we just understand it's positive. It's not connecting to the back of something. And then if we go ahead and do my second multiplication, and look, you might see that's minus 7, and you're right. But if I move it out there, and I have the liberty of doing that on my computer, you should see that it's actually also considered a negative 7. So when we're going to put it in our calculator, we're going to say 7 times negative 7. Okay, 7 times negative 7. 7 times negative 7. And you get an answer of negative 49. Now again, kind of the same idea as I did up here, right? Negative minus negative, right? If this is a negative 49, when I go to buddy it up right behind this first term, it looks like a minus 49. And again, that's right. But hopefully you can see that your sign of a term also sometimes is the operation. It's one and the same. So be careful. All right, moving down here to the bottom one. So again, I get two different multiplications here because I got two terms inside. I'm just going to move that second one over there so you can easily see that they are indeed two separate multiplications. in two separate terms. So looking at the blue multiplication, I have 2, ooh, whoa, sorry about that. All right, I have 2 times negative 4, which is negative 8x. Then if I take that green term, 2 times positive 8, I get a positive 16y. And again, that sign is your operation in between. Kind of one and the same. All right, looking at that last example there, we have 4 times 5, 4 times negative 4. So 4 times 5, 20. No variable that time around, no big deal. And the second, 4 times negative 4. And again, I can kind of move it out here so you can see it. Yes, it looks like a minus, but it is like a negative. So 4 times negative 4 is going to give me negative 16. So negative 16. And I also want to put my x with it. Real easy to forget the variables, guys, so just double check. My first term should be a regular number. My second term should have the x. My first term should have the x. My second one should have the y. So again, real easy to forget, but easy to double check. All right, so level 2, distributing a negative term. So, meaning if we look out front here, all these are negatives. So negatives can kind of lead to some errors when you're looking at signs. What goes in this little box, or sorry, in this little circle? So let's take a look at the first one. So again, we are multiplying that negative 2 times the first term. So negative 2 times 4 is negative 8, and there's an x with it. Moving on to the second part here, and again, I'm going to scoot that 3 out there so you can really see it's its own term. It is a negative 2 times a positive 3. So again, you may do this in your head. You might need to use the calculator, but I get a negative 6 answer. So again, negative 6, when I'm butting it up or writing it into an expression, is like a minus 6. Now, take a quick look. A lot of times, here's a common misconception is they say, hey, Miss Mac, I see this a plus sign in that first grouping in my original problem. So this should probably be a plus sign, right? It is not, because when you did your multiplication, guys, you ended up with a negative 6 answer. That means it changed the sign that was part of your original problem. So it should indeed be a negative 6. And again, how do you determine that is by your multiplying. We had a negative times a positive, which gave me a negative answer or a subtraction of a value. All right, looking at the second one. So I'm going to move them apart so we can easily see my two parts of multiplying. We have negative 5, we're going to multiply it by 1. Negative 5, and bring that x down. Now, the second one, negative 5 times a negative 3. And again, I kind of was able to shift it over so you can really see that it's a negative. However, when it is buddied up straight on your problem, you're going to need to acknowledge, okay, I'm multiplying a negative 5 times, oh, that's a negative 3. All right, and it's a positive 15 answer. So just like I mentioned in this one, yes, you may say it's originally negative. Do not just transfer that sign down. My answer was a positive 15. So therefore, when I go to write in my answer for the positive, or write in the answer for my second multiplication problem there, it's a positive 15. All right, let's take a look at this one down here. We're going to go ahead and skip this one for time's sake. And let's move on to this last one here. So again, I'm going to kind of move this out so we can see it really good, that I'm multiplying my negative 10 first by my negative 2. Again, use calculator if you need to. Negative 10 times 2, positive 20. So it switched my signs on me there. And it's the leader out front, so we just put a 20. When I go to do my back end multiplication, negative 10, hopefully you see it, times negative 7. So negative 10 times negative 7 is going to give me a positive 70. So that positive 70 is like plus 70, and then my x value drops down. So be careful with negative terms. What I want you to take from level 2 distributing is that sometimes your signs will change. It's not always what was in the original problem. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not, but just be careful with it. It's not a quick assumption. All right, take a look at this expression below. Should you be able to use the distributive property to simplify? Yes, no, I don't know. Well, I can't read your minds at home, so let's just take a minute and dive in. All right, so yes, it's actually distributing a negative 1. I'm going to go ahead and see if I can blow this up here. Yes, so it is a negative 1. So it's kind of like we just put a little 1 in there. But there's a negative value being multiplied by both. So when we multiply it, let's get out my colors, negative 1 times 4, negative 4x. That negative 1, we're going to also multiply it by that back end number, so negative 1 times 2. It gives me, and I'm going to do it in the calculator so you can see my answer, I get a negative 2 answer. That is the same as a minus 2 answer, okay? So here's another example where it switched my sign. But if you have a negative up front, we absolutely need to distribute it. All right, let's take a look at another 2 examples. So my first one here at the bottom. So again, if it helps you to write the little 1 in there, I most certainly would. So when we do our multiplying, negative 1 times 4, negative 4x. Then we have a negative 1 times 5, which is negative 5. Okay, last one here. This one actually has a double assumption of a 1. We have a negative on the outside, which is a 1. And then if you look at that first term inside the parentheses, we have a negative x. As we've always talked about, when you just see a variable and no number, you can assume that it is a 1. So there's another example. Oh, kind of came through. All right, now that we've got our 1s in there, hopefully you can see what we're multiplying. So negative 1 times negative 1 is a positive 1. And x comes on down. The second part there, we have a negative 1 times a positive 2, which is going to give me an answer of negative 2. All right, so now that we've completed these problems, I want you to just take a look real quick, and I'm going to go ahead and just erase kind of all my scratch work on the problem so we can really take note. And here's what I want you to focus in on. 4x plus 2, negative 4x minus 2. Okay, take a look at this one. 4x plus 5, negative 4x minus 5. Negative x plus 2, x minus 2. So hopefully you can see the pattern. If you did not, take a look at these bottom ones in the box here. We have a positive 4 goes to negative, positive 5, negative 5. They're flipping the switch. They're flipping signs, right? Negative x, positive 2, negative 2. So this little guy down here, if I click on him, it tells us you should hopefully see that by distributing in negative. So when there's a negative sign or a negative 1 out front, whichever it is, it switches the signs of your expression within the parentheses. All it's doing is switching the signs. So again, whatever you saw inside here, it's completely the opposite. 4x, negative 4x. Positive 5, negative 5. So just a quick connection there so you can help check your work. All right, level 3, the last one here. This is backwards distributing, as I call it. So let's take a look at a couple examples. So you might look at this and say, what? It's backwards, right? We're not used to seeing it like this. One way that you can look at it and handle it is you can just simply take, this is what's bothering us, right? Is the number being distributed on the back end. So we can just take it and move it to the front. And whether or not I get that I can move and drag it on my screen, but what you could also do is just take a minute, scratch it out, and rewrite it out front, okay? I'm going to go ahead and just, for the sake of not scribbling everywhere and keeping just my writing to a minimum, we're going to just move it to the front, and then you can distribute from there as normal. So 4 times positive 4x gives us 16x, and then when we move to the back end distributing, 4 times, remember, positive 2, right? Gives us an answer of positive 8, so it's plus 8. Okay, so same thing over here. Now again, if you guys prefer and you can handle it this back way, you absolutely can. You still have to think about it as 2 separate multiplications. 3 times 1x, 3 times negative 4. So any way you'd like. I think the easiest method is just to bring it onto the front so that you don't get anything confused. So the last one here, 3x plus, so we have 3x and then minus 12. All right, guys, so we're running out of time on my video here. I'm going to skip the last 2 expressions here, but again, you can just move the terms to the front and proceed. Good luck. Reach out if you need help. The assignment's online.